the next part of the meeting now. It's really wonderful to see all these friends and wonderful friendly faces here. So the next part is getting reports from affinity groups, mostly based here in Boston, but not all. So let's get started. And for people who haven't been with us before, affinity groups are groups of people who have found a common interest, who are members of the BPRG usually, and then they want to pursue their common interest more. We're not monitoring them as the BPRG, but we're really interested and curious to learn about their activities, and that's what we're going to be doing here now. So the first person I'm going to ask, and could I ask also for people who are giving reports just to give a 1 or 2 sentence introduction of yourself, since now we don't know each other so well. So Jeremy Dames, could you start and tell us about the professional association?
Thank you. And yes, hi everyone. Nice to meet y'all who I haven't met. Okay, intro. So I say often that I don't have any fancy titles next to my name relative to being a practitioner or a scientist or a researcher, but I do have the great fortune of having worked with these medicines in an underground capacity with actually 2 very impeccable folks here in the Boston area. And I, as far as I'm concerned, I am cured of complex PTSD due to the compassionate efforts of these folks. And so I felt very much missioned to find ways to give back. And a little over a year ago at Ron's house with the BPRG, it was identified that a professional association that would support the practitioners of this work didn't exist. And I was sort of surprised by that, and perhaps foolishly raised my hand and said, I'll do that. I'll help start that. And so a year later, we find ourselves here. And just this past Thursday, we held certainly the biggest meeting we've had. We call ourselves the midwives of that group, because there's been a sort of a working group of practitioners and other folks from around the country, West Coast, Midwest, all up and down the East Coast, that have gathered to birth this professional association. But we also recognize that we are not the professional association itself. And maybe I'll back up just a slight bit and talk about what a professional association can and could be. Basically, it's designed to advocate for all of you, really, the people who are going to do this work, have a place where standards of care can be set by the folks that are doing the work, rather than maybe foisted upon you by other interests or powers that may be. It will provide guidelines for safety. It will advocate on your behalf with insurance companies so that they can understand what it means to deliver a psychedelic therapy session that is 6 hours. Like, where's the billing code for that? No one knows. It doesn't exist. So this organization, everyone feels very strongly should exist in the world. And we had our first summit meeting, as I said, last Thursday. Actually, a few folks from the BPRG were there, and I would love it if to get a brief sentence or two of what you experienced.
Sure. No, thank you, Jeremy, for all the hard work. So that I went to the meeting, as Jeremy said, last Thursday. It was the first time that I'd been involved in this at all. I really was just curious, and one of my fellow CPTR cohort, Alex Cardenas, is a psychiatrist, and he was leading the meeting. So there were quite a few of us from our cohort. It was impressive. And it's a really interesting problem to be working on. I was impressed by how many thoughtful practitioners were committed to the work on this very complicated issue. And I'm sure they're open to more people getting involved. So anyone who's interested should either reach out to Jeremy or me, and do that through the info at Boston Psychedelic Research Group email, and then we can connect you with that group.
Yep.
So,
I just want to share a quick slide of the groups that were represented. I was saying on one of the breakout rooms that to me, it felt like the Constitutional Convention, where representatives from all over the country of all of these different groups, some of which resemble the BPRG, some of which do not. But it was amazing to have all these folks in this room really trying to solve a very complex problem. And one of the members or participants put it really poignantly, where she said, we're working with molecules whose primary mode of action is by dissolving hierarchical structures. And here we are trying to create a hierarchical structure in support of that work. So this is a really amazing time. And as I'm going to echo Anne's call for support here, what we need right now are more practitioners who feel like they could help create the actual professional association. So the midwives have brought us this far. We're not done, but what needs to happen next is a steering committee needs to be formed, which will then elect a board of directors, which will then actually create the professional association. So we are asking for more folks that want to get in the game, help shape what the standard of care can, should, and will be. And try to define the unlanguageable in some cases. So yeah, as Anne said, reach out to me directly or through the BPRG mailing list, however you want to get in touch. But we need more folks. We need to expand the room of practitioners that want to help before we can contract it into, I think, a very cogent next phase where this is going to start to form. I think, timing wise, we're going to take our time. We want to do it right. We want to do it in conjunction with as things are unfolding with the FDA. So it is a long arc, but everyone felt on Thursday that now is the time to really start getting serious about this before our destiny is defined by others. So that was my closer. All right, I'm going to stop sharing, and thank you guys so much. I'll pass it back to Anne and Sherry.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's great to see this really happening.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anne Dutton, could you update us, please, on the contemplative practices and psychedelic research group?
Sure. So, hi, everybody. My name is Anne Dutton, and I'm living in New Haven, Connecticut, where I practice psychotherapy and teach in the psychiatry department at Yale, doing mindfulness education, and am involved in a research project through Yale using psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression, and also in the CPTR program this year. And I was told about BPRG by my colleague, Dan Grossman. And then when there was a call for forming affinity groups, we decided to start one for folks who are interested in the intersection of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy and research and contemplative practice. And we quickly found that we had to narrow the scope of what we meant by contemplative practice to Buddhist and Vedic inspired contemplative practices, because there's a very wide spectrum of contemplative practices from the different wisdom traditions of the world. So we really focus on Buddhist and Vedic inspired ones. So it really means that we're focused on the intersection of three things. One is psychotherapy as practiced in the, sort of Western model of psychiatry and psychology, psychedelics, and contemplative practice. And we had a meeting yesterday at which Dr. Ron Siegel presented and facilitated a discussion about the promises and perils of psychedelic assisted contemplative practice, meaning, the question of whether psychedelics can inspire, can enhance, or can detract from contemplative practice. And so he gave a very lovely presentation. And then we all had a really good discussion about different aspects of that. So if anybody has an interest in contemplative practice of this sort and would like to be involved in the Affinity group, you can email Dan Brisbane or myself, and we'll put you on the mailing list.
And if you don't have their addresses, just email the info at Boston Psychedelic, and then Sherry and I will get it to them. Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Dick Simon to give us an update on the new Mass General Center for the Neuroscience of Psychedelics.
Great. Thank you very much, Anne. I'm right now at a cabin up in Maine, so I am going to stop my video so that hopefully that enhances the audio quality. So I'm looking at all of you, even if you can't see me. So the Mass General Center for the Neuroscience of Psychedelics is not a BPRG endeavor. However, there are a number of members of BPRG who have been very involved and very helpful, including those who are at Mass General, like Franklin King and others. And I want to do special shout outs to Anne and Shippen and Ron, Miss, and Georgie, who have been very supportive of the work and advancing it. Ron and Georgie, many of us have been enjoyed their home, their gracious home in real life days of BPRG, when we can actually get together, and thanking many others for their generous support. So I'm chairing the advisory council there, and what's basically going on is where, you know, everything's moving forward. We're looking at several major potential grants with foundation partners that would order of magnitude shift things, you know, we'll see, but as well as collaborations with organizations, both for-profit and not-for-profit, that are involved in this space, who are interested in having work done and research done. So you know, that's all going forward, including certainly MAPS. The first study is using psilocybin, looking at for treatment-resistant depression patients with heavy rumination issues, rumination underlying a lot of mental health issues. Basically, we're caught in a loop, and the fact that the default mode network is reduced dramatically is really what was originally the genesis of the whole MGH center, and that's expanded a lot. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we're now looking at several indications beyond mental health. So we're looking at a number of mental health indications, but you know, including ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, and so actually trying to quantify the benefits. I mean, those involved have very strong sense of how beneficial it is, but data isn't strong yet supporting it. And we're working to try to maps, looking at social isolation issues. But beyond mental health, we're starting to look at other indications that psychedelics may be helpful for. And all of this, I should point out, we're doing with sophisticated neuroimaging of almost all subjects, as well as looking at their brain. So removing skin cells from the subject, turning them into pluripotent stem cell, their own stem cells, and then advancing those into nerve development. So you're actually able to look for those patients at what's going on with their own brain cells outside their body, ex vivo, so we can figure out what's working and why, and how you can do things to potentially help either the non-responders or otherwise improve. But we're looking at movement disorders as a possibility, everything from, you know, ALS to Parkinson, and overall inflammation issues, and even the possibility, we're finding a couple of interesting things that we want to look further at related to Alzheimer's. So it's mental health, which is where it started, but it's expanding beyond that. And then finally, I want to invite everyone we've got a series of webinars, and the third one is coming up this coming Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. And that will be with Dr. Stephen Haggerty, who is running molecular neurobiology for the center, and looking at two things. One, it'll be a deep dive, talking about the potential for this brains in a dish and what we can learn from it related to all the different work that's being done around psychedelics that I was describing earlier. But also there's a collection of about 100 plants that the late Dr. Richard Schultes, who was the early founder certainly of ethnobotany, collected in the Amazon working with Harvard in the 50s and 60s. That collection has been at the Harvard Herbarium, and now with modern tools, we're able to look at them in ways that they've never been able to be looked at. So there may be new substances coming out of it. Some of them reference in his descriptions for people with tremors, for people who aren't remembering well. So who knows what will come out of it, but the potential is huge. And that's what we're up to. Happy to share more. And if anybody wants to attend the webinar and hasn't gotten an invitation, just reach out via Ann or just send me a note at dick@dicksimon.com. Thanks.
Thank you, Dick. That's great. And Dick and his group at the Mass General have been very generous and let us post those webinars on the BPRG website. So if that time doesn't work for you, and you're interested in looking at the webinars, go onto our website and you'll be able to find them. Terrific.
Right. And also, if you sign up, if you end up signing up, we'll be sending a link. So even if you can't make the time, you can sign up. But you're right, the webinars are on the BPRG site.
Great. Thank you, Dick. Enjoy Maine. Thanks for coming in from there. Yvonne,
thanks.
Hi, thank you, Anne. And hi, everybody. I'm Yvan Bossan. I work as an investigator at Dana-Farber here in Boston, Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And maybe just I thought I would give a few updates on good news from the work we're trying to set up here at Dana-Farber. And maybe just before, I've been lucky enough to attend the BPGR since its early days. So it's really fantastic to see how fast and well it's growing. And I think it really reflects a lot of the enthusiasm that we see in this field. And most of us really believe that this work will make a difference for people, including patients and families. But still, there is a lot of research to be done to fill the gap, the 40 years gap in the science of psychedelic-assisted therapies. And so my hope is that our small team and growing team at Dana-Farber can help contribute, fill this gap in the population of patients who have cancer and their families. And we're now really focusing our psilocybin research program on patients who receive hospice care. And as you may know, the recent history of psychedelic research has had an important step in the cancer populations. We have the Johns Hopkins, the NYU and the UCLA trials that have been really instrumental in bringing this work to the mainstream attention, and with particularly striking results in these patient populations. That says there are a number of limitations that need to be addressed in future research. And one particularly important is that it's very hard to know in this preliminary work of psilocybin-assisted therapy what kind of previous therapy these patients had received, and what will be the impact of psychedelic-assisted therapies in patients who already receive kind of standard of care psychosocial oncology and palliative care interventions. So I think more and more we realize that the research that needs to be conducted in this field is we need to compare psychedelic-assisted therapy. We need to assess psychedelic-assisted therapies in patients who receive good practices, psychology, and palliative care, and to see what is the added value of those new therapy in such patients. And that's really what will in my understanding, will convince the mainstream folks who are taking care of these patients, oncologists, palliative care physicians, psychosocial oncologists, and all these professionals. So that's kind of the background and how we design our study right now. And so what I would like to share today in terms of progress that we made is that first we had a tremendous help from the Diversity Outreach and Inclusion Affinity group from the BPGR. So I reached out to them and shared our study design, study protocol, and asked them, hey guys, how can we make this intentionally inclusive, you know? And so I really, I encourage every investigator who would like to intentionally conduct this research, you know, with an attention to diversity and inclusion, because they really did like an amazing job, like bringing to our awareness, like how we can improve those characteristics of our trial, from the study design, from the constitution of our team, to how we include patients and how we. So really, thank you to this affinity group, and. We also are fundraising for to be able to conduct this study. So I received a grant from the Oppenheimer Family Foundation to direct it to this study that will fund part that will allow us to treat the first 5 patients that we need to treat in patients who receive hospice care. So that's really fantastic. We have worked with other foundations who have expressed interest that could fund also a big part of this study, but they told us that they will confirm their grant if we are able to fully fund the study. So we have now a gap of $70,000 that we're trying to fill. So if you know everybody, or if you yourself is interested to support this research in patients, terminally ill patients or cancer populations, like please send them my way, or and I'm happy to talk more about the project and how we intend to do that. And just to mention that this study we've been collaborating with Hefter Research Institute, and the Hefter Research Board has unanimously approved our study protocol. So we're the only study here in Boston which has the support of the Hefter in the palliative care or oncology realm these days. So I think it will, my hope is that it will be an important contribution to advance the science in this research area. And thank you again for the BPGR for all the support and work. Thank you, and I give you back the follow-up.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's so exciting to see how quickly this may not feel quick to you, but when we think 2 years ago, there wasn't anything like this going on. It's really starting to happen. Thank you for all you've done to make it happen.
Thank you.
So Mackenzie Bullard will tell us about the DOI, the Diversity Outreach and Inclusion Affinity Group, and Yvonne mentioned them. They're doing amazing work. So I'm looking forward to hearing from Mackenzie about what they're doing.
Yeah, Yvonne took one of our updates about the work we were doing, but I appreciate the shout out. So that's well, it's good to be with everybody today. That are going on around racism and race in our country today. It's really been a pleasure to have the voice and the guidance and leadership from BPRG with Anne, Dick, Ron, and Yvonne and others that are leading the way on this to open up the floor for our community to come in and do some good work. So the DOI group's been very busy. We're currently in the process of organizing an October meeting around diversity and inclusion to talk about racial equity and social inclusion in this work. I don't know if I can tell you who's coming, but okay, I can. I see Anne. We hope that Alan Davis will be joining us for our October 25th meeting. He's doing a lot of incredible work. I think he's now at Johns Hopkins, and he recently put out a survey to incite about psychedelic experiences for native Spanish speakers. So really interesting stuff kind of coming from him, and we're excited about that. We're also looking towards expanding some of our work with presentations moving forward in December. And also another thing that we're really curious about in the group that we would like to hear some feedback on is really talking and opening up the discussion about ableism in psychedelic research. Individuals that may not be able-bodied people, but still desire and have intersections of wanting to free their consciousness and be free of the mental pain and suffering that they may be going through. So that's one of the things that the group's really thinking about right now. We've started to develop, well, we have developed a racial equity and social justice framework for research protocols and projects, as Yvonne alluded to. Some of these things are also being shared with the CIAS CPTR group about how to incorporate some of these lenses into the work that the future therapists will do. Because, you know, inequitable research and inevitably turns into inequitable treatment. So these are some of the things that we want to do on the research side, so it translates into the hands of everybody that needs access to it. The other thing that we're doing is, we've been selected to do a seminar as a group for the Research Professional Network about racial equity and social justice in psychedelic research. This is a research network that's shared at a lot of medical schools, and a lot of young professionals are involved in it. So we're working with Boston University and Boston Medical Center to put that together. And then some of us on the team are also doing POV articles specifically about ketamine inequity. So talk about standard of care. We don't believe that ketamine we believe ketamine should equitably be available to all people, and it shouldn't be a economic barrier that it is currently to be involved with it. Both on the therapy side as therapists and as individuals seeking the therapy themselves. Overall, the team has really gained a lot of momentum. We've created a community here. We're excited, we're vibrant, and we're trying to keep the conversation moving. You know, where things are right now in the world, sometimes it's popular to do this work and sometimes it's really not. So we continue to encourage all of you to seek us out, to pick our brains on things and find areas of collaboration around this to make the research better for all of us, to include all of us, to have a future that looks very diverse and is inclusive of all people, all demographics and intersectionalities. With that, I'm excited for the talk. I think I froze because you all look frozen, but if you didn't catch some of that, I'm sure you can catch me, email me or and I'll put something in the chat.
Great.
Yeah, good to you.
You weren't frozen too much at the time, Mackenzie. You looked great and sounded great. I want to just make a special shout out to the DOI because they've done really a lot of work, and Mackenzie and a team that's very democratic, and we've heard from a variety of them each time. It's great. And for those who haven't looked at our statement of solidarity that's on our website, I would encourage you to look at it. It's a really thoughtful piece that was important for me personally to be able to work with them on it. I think they did it beautifully. So thank you, Mackenzie. We now have the pleasure of welcoming Janice Phelps. She is willing to give us an update on the where we are with bringing the CIS CPTR, the certificate program, to be a psychedelic therapist and researcher to Boston. And I was going to give the update, but luckily Janice can do it because she's the one who's really making it happen. So Janice, please.
Thanks, Anne, but please do weigh in on this yourself because we co-created this enterprise. I'm really happy to be here and thanks for inviting me. We're announcing to you all, you're the first to hear it, that because of the strength of the people in BPRG and the fact that Several of the leadership members of BPRG have graduated from the CIIS program or have been teachers in the CIIS program. We are coming to Boston. We'll be running a cohort of trainees, licensed medical and mental health professionals, and ordained clergy beginning in April 2021. It'll be a group that will make it easier for people on the East Coast to come to classes without traveling so far. We'll be doing some rental of convention center or possibly a retreat center in the Boston area so that people from your half of the country don't have to travel so far. We'll also be running a course out of San Francisco, as we've done in the last 5 years. And we wouldn't be coming to Boston without the fact that you all are here, and you've grown so exponentially and with great strength. So congratulations on that. And we're really excited to be coming. So I thought if I could show you 2 slides, I could give you a little bit of info, and then I'll put the PDF of it up onto in the chat so you can see it. And I will give you this, everything on here, and I'm going to go through it really quickly, but I wanted to give a shout out to the people who are on the organizational team with us. These are members of BPRG, teachers who are already teaching with us, and some key thinkers from the San Francisco class this year that we brought on board to help us co-create the programming for the next year. We're starting in April and we're ending in December. So we don't start early in the year, but we end right before the December holidays. It'll be a 150-hour program. We cut 30 hours of watching videos. We did that because in the spring, as you can see here, we'll be online. We don't know about the trajectory of the pandemic. So as other universities are doing, we're staying online in the spring and we'll be in person in the fall. We'll have 7 meetings. By the time trainees complete their work, they will have done 3 of the 5 current MAPS modules and very generous and thoughtful collaboration with MAPS. The tuition is $98.50. We have ample scholarships and need-based aid coming. Applications open October 15th and they end November 30th. And sorry about that. And this information will be in the PDF for you. You can know that probably 1 out of 3 or 4 applicants will be admitted. It was 1 out of 3 this current year. And we'll have a class of 100 trainees based in Boston. And we'll get them all enrolled by March 1st. And we're very strict in our eligibility criteria. People need to be licensed in these areas only, or ordained and commissioned as a clergy member or a chaplain with an MDiv and 4 units of CPE for the clergy. This is an example of the readings we have for the whole year. We have a recommended list of readings that we can give you in another email through Sherry and Ann. And for each of the weekends, just to let you know the reading load here, it's about 25 to 30 pages of reading per hour of class that each of our teachers requires. And our teachers are the major researchers in the United States, a few from the UK and the EU, such as Torsten Passy and Ben Sessa. We are really thrilled to be able to have such a high quality of teachers in our program. And this is the contact info that will be in the PDF that I'll upload in a second. And I'm wondering if Anne would like to add anything to what I've just said. We're thrilled to be doing this. Anne has helped pull together that incredible organizational team based in Boston. What else would you like to say, Anne? And it includes Ron and Dick and Yvonne in particular.
Great. No, thank you so much, Janice. And thank you to everyone who's volunteered. It was a really easy job. I didn't have to do anything but put the word out. And actually it started with Janice publicly challenging me, inviting me to do so at the BPRG meeting in May. And I think that's what really gave us a lot of impetus to make this happen. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that's important to know is there'll be also 100 students based in California at CIS. So CIS will be more than doubling the cohort size by having 2 cohorts of 100. The other thing is, if anyone's interested in applying and has questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We would love as many of the BPRG members as possible to be students with Janice. I think this course is a unique course because it really looks at the wide range of psychedelic therapies. You know, MAPS has their own training, which is excellent. Hefter USONA has their training Compass, so that different research groups are doing their own training. What makes this unique is that it includes, I can't quite say all, maybe I could say all, but most of the modalities, psychedelic modalities that are being used these days.
Oh, thank you, Anne.
Yeah. Anything else or any questions people might have for Janice? We're so lucky to have her with us for this time. Great.
Hello, Janice. I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you so much for including naturopathic doctors.
Oh, you're so welcome, June.
I will be applying.
I have one more thing to say, Anne. I forgot. I did a count. There are 13 teachers and graduates or current students on this call. If any of you would be willing to be an advisor or be a consultant to tell a particular person who might like to apply about the program, would you put your email address up in the chat as someone they can contact if they want to know something about the program from your point of view, from having gone through it? Thanks a lot. And Sherry, I have to send you the PDF of that slide show because I can't upload it into the chat. I don't have that permission.
Send it to me, and I'm posting in the chat right now the link to the CIIS Center for Psychedelic Therapies and Research site. And at the bottom of it, you can subscribe to the newsletter so you'll get updates as there are more things happening with the program. So that's there for everyone. Janice, just check it's the right link.
Thanks, Sherry.
That looks right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has the subscribe at the bottom with entering your emails.
Great, and it's great to see the names of people who are in or have been in the CPTR. It's a fabulous program.
And Jenny, so just add, it seems you have good feedback of the students from the current cohort that despite all the COVID-related Zoom transformations, you know, of the teaching, like people really find the kind of teaching and networking that they're looking for.
Oh, thank you, Yvonne. I had forgotten to say that because of COVID, we created about 10 new workshops, book clubs, study groups, networking possibilities. Mary Casamano's doing something on love and compassion. Bill Richards did 2 book clubs on sacred knowledge, his incredible textbook. Chris Beisch has done 2 book clubs on his book, LSD and the Mind of the Universe. Chuck Rayzone's talking about research protocols in a study group. We've tried to make it interesting. Oh, and we have film nights and silly hat social hours after classes. So we've tried to make it engaging. You know, challenges breed creativity, don't you know?
And you get us dancing, right, Janice?
Yes, we were dancing too.
Well, great. Well, I hope this is a little bit of a tease, and that I'm sure that we'll get lots of interest. I'm already seeing it in the chat. It's really wonderful. Great. Any last words, Janice?
Nope, thanks for the opportunity. And I appreciate everyone on that list on the organizational team. We're doing it because of you folks. You're a powerhouse group. I'm so thrilled.
Well, we couldn't do it without your leadership. You're amazing. So I think, Janice, I didn't introduce you properly enough for people who don't know. Janice created this program, and so it's really her baby, and it's been amazing to watch it grow so beautifully. Really inspirational.
It takes a big old village, and there's a lot of work to do. We need tens of thousands of therapists trained.
Yeah, yeah, great, Good, well, thank you. Okay. So I have one very brief update on an affinity group that wasn't able to give us an update, and that's the ketamine assisted psychotherapy group here in Boston. And they started, I think almost 2 years ago. Just a group of people got together who were interested in trying to figure out how we could bring CAP to the Boston area. A few people had been trained, and we had enough people who were interested that we were able to get Phil and Julaine and Geeta Bade and Barry Walker to come and give a training here last October. So we had almost 30 people trained last October. So there's a group of the CAP trained therapists who are meeting regularly. They were meeting regularly pre-COVID, and then they had to go on hold because almost all of them had to stop doing what they were doing. A few have restarted up and have figured out ways to do it safely, and others are hoping to do that sooner rather than later. The demand for therapy has been completely overwhelming, which I think is one reason they didn't want to report so that they wouldn't be identified as the CAP people. They need to get started up again in these new times before they can really take new clients on. Though anyone curious about it, certainly feel free to be in touch with me. And they have promised me an update at our next meeting in November. So I think that's it for the affinity group updates. And we've done really beautifully on time. Thank you, everyone. We're going to take a 10-minute break now. It's hard to sit in front of this computer for 4 hours. So we'll take a 10-minute break. And so we'll aim to come back, it's 1:43. We'll aim to come back about 1:55 to get started again. And then we'll be able to hear from Annie and Michael Mithofer as our featured speakers. Thank you, everyone. See you in a few.